So it's that time of year again, guys. It is coming up to the end of 2018. So it's time to talk about the other side of 2018, which was what were my biggest disappointments this year. There weren't as many as there were in 2017, but there were definitely a couple of big ones for me this year. And we're going to get to that straight away and talk about that. So here are the top 5 biggest disappointments of 2018.
Number 5.
Shadow of the Tomb Raider. So I am very sad that this is in this list for me, and that this game didn't make my top 5 list for 2018. And you all know I'm a massive fan of the Tomb Raider franchise, and particularly the Tomb Raider reboot. I was really enjoyed the first 2 games and was super excited for the 3rd and final game in the series. I was very much looking forward to it. I was excited to see what was going to happen with Lara. I was excited to see a more human Lara, and to obviously see the conclusion would be in her story. But I was so disappointed with Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I don't think that Crystal Dynamics should have handed the reins to Eidos Montreal. Now, don't get me wrong, I've got nothing against Eidos Montreal. They've created some incredible games, particularly the Deus Ex franchise, which I'm a massive, massive fan of. But I think giving them the reins on the 3rd and final game put them in a very difficult position, because obviously Crystal Dynamics had done the 1st and 2nd game. And, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, it did feel like it was done by a different team. There were still elements of the game that had been in the 1st and 2nd game, but I don't know why, but this game, it just didn't feel the same. It didn't grip me the same way the 1st and 2nd game was, and I was incredibly disappointed with the writing. I didn't think that the game concluded well. It didn't feel like the 3rd game in a trilogy. It just felt like another installment in Lara's story. It didn't feel like we were drawing anything to a close. We didn't really see her deal with any sort of repercussions from the 1st or 2nd game. Progressively over the first 2 games, Lara has become a darker character. She's killed a lot of people, she's taken a lot of lives, and we didn't really see that. At the beginning of the game, her actions lead to a huge apocalypse that happens, and she's in shock over that, but I didn't really feel like she dealt with it. That this whole idea of Lara feeling that she had to save the day and do everything by herself, and Jonah sort of saying it's not all about you, it's not only you. By the end of the game, I feel like she just sort of fell back into, the same problems, the same issues she was having. It was still Lara saving the day by herself. It was still her doing everything. It was still that narcissistic Lara of, believing that she can take anything on, and that she's almost, inhuman in her abilities. And, for some of her abilities, definitely she is inhuman. But I just felt like the conclusion it didn't have that emotional resonance or that emotional impact that I was looking for. The 1st game is the best in the franchise, in my opinion. It was a roller coaster of a ride. It pulled your emotions in every which way. You felt like you were Lara, but on so many occasions in this 3rd game, I couldn't really relate to her, and I felt myself getting really frustrated with her. And at the beginning of the game, that would be completely natural, but I was hoping by the end of the game I would at least be back on her side, but I just didn't feel that way at all. I also felt that the AI in the game was a huge letdown, a massive disappointment. The AI was downright awful on some occasions, and not spotting you when really they should have done. And on other occasions, if you got spotted by one enemy, miraculously all the AI would suddenly know where you were, and all of them would open fire on you simultaneously, and you would be dead even before you could react. So, issues with AI really, really bothered me. I thought there was a massive push towards the stealth element of it, and the stealth sections were really, really fun. But then I felt when you went into combat and you got spotted, that you were punished for it almost, for not staying in stealth the entire time. So weak writing, terrible AI, and just a little boring, some of the gameplay, particularly when you're going to sort of the big open sections and a lot of side content, side quests and things like that. There was just a lot of fetch quests that really slowed down the game and really broke up the story and really took me out of the moment, and I would have preferred not to have had them. I would have preferred just for it to have been a linear story where we actually see, you know, a full, nice, fleshed out story and see a full conclusion. I mean, at the end of the game, Lara didn't even have her dual pistols, which for me was just a massive disappointment. So I'm very sad to say that Shadow of the Tomb Raider was one of the biggest disappointments for me this year.
Number 4.
Metal Gear Survive, a mediocre mess. So Metal Gear Survive was just so awful at the beginning of the year. Oh my god, this game was just terrible. I mean, obviously we've had, you know, a lot of controversy with Konami, with Kojima splitting from them, and, you know, no longer at the head, no longer at the helm leading the Metal Gear franchise. And Metal Gear Survive was just hollow. It was a soulless game that was purely just about making a quick buck and making money off of the Metal Gear name that Kojima has built up, that Kojima has made, not Konami. And it just shows that Konami, in this case, don't know how to make good games. And it was kind of heartbreaking for me to see, because I'm a massive fan of the Metal Gear franchise, and I was so gutted to see the Metal Gear franchise fall in such a way, and the gameplay was just so boring and so mind-numbingly mediocre, and it was just very much a cash grab. Konami should just stick to making pachinko machines, because it seems to be the only good thing, you know, that they've got going for them and the only thing that they're good at. And I'm just so worried for the future of the Metal Gear series. I wish that Kojima still had the license and the ability to continue that series, and I'm very concerned, you know, what's going to happen in the future. But Metal Gear Survive for me was just one of the biggest low points of this year.
Number 3.
PlayStation Classics underwhelming library. So Sony recently bought out the PlayStation Classic mini console, and it's their attempt to sort of copy Nintendo's success with their mini SNES and mini nostalgia kind of consoles. And it was Sony's way of trying to get in on that and trying to sort of copy that success and take advantage of that nostalgia that many players of my age and older, and even a little younger, have, you know, that our childhood and those classic games that we played in our childhood on the original, you know, PlayStation 1. And they brought out the console, and it was a great idea. You know, there is definitely a market for it. But I've got to say that the games offered on the library for that console were just so underwhelming. They're not the classics that the original system had. It just lacked those iconic games that came out on the original console, and it just didn't have any of them. It didn't have so many of the old classics that we loved, and you know, the games on there, you know, some of them were like, what game now? I've never heard of that game. I never played that game. And, you know, I think the console came out at, was it £90 or £100 full price? But it's actually gone down. It's been discounted recently, 50% off, which is very telling of how little this console is selling. And I think had the library been a much better, it probably would sell a lot better. And, you know, I don't even think you've got the ability to download and add additional games onto it. So why you would buy this console is beyond me, but I can get why they did it. But I just think the people they got in charge of deciding what games would go in the library, maybe they had problems with licensing and getting, you know, copyright issues and things like that. Maybe that's why the library is so lackluster. But if you can't bring the good titles, the big titles that everyone wants to play from their childhood, don't bother making it. You know, I feel like they should have sent out a survey and questioned PlayStation fans and asked fans what games they'd like to see on it, and then go from there. And I feel like they didn't really listen to fans or even engage fans to find out what they want. They just brought out what they thought people wanted, which actually wasn't what they wanted. So yeah, the PlayStation Classic was just very disappointing, which is very sad to see.
Number 2.
The fall from grace for Bethesda Studios with Fallout 76. So Bethesda Studios is one of my favorite studios. I love them. They've brought out some incredible games in the past, incredible stories, incredible characters. You know, the older Fallout series, particularly Fallout New Vegas, was one of the best ones for me. Of course, Skyrim. You know, they've brought out a lot of incredible games in the past. So it was absolutely heart-wrenching to see them bring out Fallout 76 in the buggy, non-playable, downright awful condition that it was in. Obviously Fallout 76 was a brand new direction for the franchise. It was a fully online multiplayer game. I think 4-player co-op was it, but you know, while you might have had that online multiplayer, and many fans of the series have been interested in it and asking for it for a while, to have that online multiplayer, they sacrificed so much of what made the original Fallouts so special. So the meaningful stories, the well-written characters, you know, the feeling of having to make very difficult moral choices and having very definite consequences to your decisions. All of that was scrapped. All of that was non-existent. In you know, there weren't even, the world in which you're exploring was uninhabited, you know, mostly, except for machines, and you know, through a lot of the characters you heard about them through voiceover, recorded messages. You didn't even actually get to meet any interesting characters really, and a lot of the gameplay, you know, from what I've seen, is very boring, very repetitive, very mediocre, almost kind of fetch quest. So that's really disappointing to see. But then what was equally a blow on top of that was the awful condition that the game was released in. This game was not ready for release. It needed at least a year, maybe 2 extra years on development. There were so many game-breaking bugs and glitches. There was one, I think, on PC where if you saved the game, it was actually deleting games and deleting saves. There were just so many bugs and performance issues, absolutely awful, and the game just wasn't playable on so many occasions, and it just shouldn't have been brought out in this way. It shouldn't have been brought out in this quality, and it's so heartbreaking, you know, to see Bethesda Studios fall in this way. And to be fair, I thought the way that they dealt with it and the way that they dealt with the backlash as well was really poor. I think they had a PR nightmare. I didn't think they responded to it very well. I don't think that they were honest with fans. I don't think that they took responsibility when they should have clearly done so. They didn't even really apologize for the quality that the game was released in. So it's disappointing to see Bethesda Studios, you know, like this, and I really hope that they learned a difficult lesson from Fallout 76, which is fans are not stupid. You know, fans want great stories, well-written characters, they want all that, and they want a well-polished, well-finished game, and are not willing to accept, you know, the quality that it is. I think Bethesda even like reduced the price. I think you could buy Fallout 76 for like £20 or something in the sale quite recently. But even given how poor it is, I still wouldn't pay 20 quid on this game, you know, even as it is currently today. They haven't really fixed it, and the main problem is with the gameplay, you know, and the lack of story, and it's really crappy, really sad to see. I think even the servers had issues, I think, from what I remember hearing. But yeah, Fallout 76 was so freaking disappointing this year.
Number 1.
Telltale Games mass layoffs. Now, this is the biggest disappointment this year, guys. I was heartbroken to hear that Telltale Games were closing down. They laid off 250 people in total, right in the middle of sort of when Walking Dead, you know, final season was being produced. There were rumors of, you know, other sequels coming. I think there was a Wolf Among Us season 2 that was going to be coming out, and I loved the first season, so I was very excited about that. And yeah, I'm disappointed that, you know, maybe we're not going to get, you know, any other Telltale Games series. And I've loved Telltale Games. I enjoyed their games. You know, their games have good stories, well written characters. Yes, the gameplay is predictable, and yes, it's not difficult by any stretch of the imagination, but it's the story and it's the characters that you're invested in, and the choices and the consequences, and that's the side of Telltale that I really loved. So yeah, I'm disappointed that we're not going to see any more of those games, but that's not what disappointed me this year. What disappointed me was the way in which Telltale Games management treated its staff. The fact that 250 people were laid off very suddenly without any advanced warning or notice. They weren't given any severance pay, which was shocking, and many of them, you know, were only left with 9 days left in their health insurance, and were left to flounder. And I just think it was disgusting. The way in which they treated their staff was absolutely disgusting. There's no way that this management didn't know that they were in trouble. And that, you know, this wasn't something that could potentially have happened. They could have given their staff more notice. And it, for me, this really highlighted a lot of what is wrong with the game industry at the moment. There's been a lot of discussion around crunch. There's been a lot of discussion around how a lot of the game developers and the staff are overworked, that they're working ridiculous hours in the day. They're working 7 days a week to bring out these games. They're not protected. There's no clear regulation. And you know, it really did raise some very serious questions that perhaps the game industry needs to be unionized. Yes, a union probably wouldn't have stopped Telltale Games from going down, because it might have always been a sinking ship, but certainly it could have protected the staff, and it could have made sure that they got treated fairly and that they got severance pay. And I think it's a very clear sign that, you know, something needs to change in the game industry, because I just think it's disgusting, you know, the way in which staff were treated in this situation. Downright friggin' illegal, you know, and I just think it was awful. And I think the management at Telltale Games just absolutely need, you know, demonizing. They're shocking, absolutely shocking. So I think it very definitely raised a very serious problem, and yeah, it's why it's number one on my list this year. I was so annoyed when I heard this news, and I was furious, and I felt so bad for you know, the people that worked so hard on all these games and were treated so terribly and so diabolically. So yeah, that's why it's number one on my list this year. So there you have it. Those are my biggest disappointments in 2018. Not as many as we've had in previous years, but they were pretty big ones, and that's why they're on this list. So let me know what you guys think, obviously, in the comment section below. What for you were the biggest disappointments of this year? Let me know in the comment section below. I'll be really interested to hear your thoughts and opinions. Hope you guys obviously are having a great week. Have a wonderful new year. Please enjoy it. Of course, stay safe, and I'll be back in 2019, of course, guys, with more content, more video games for you guys to look forward to. So my final video that I'm going to upload soon is going to be what are the most anticipated games in 2019. So please look forward to that. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button. It's always to show your support. Take care, and as always, happy gaming. Bye guys.